Thank you very much for taking time to come here today. I'm Hank Campbell, one of your presenters. I'm from Normal Rotary, and also serving on as a co-chair on the Global Grants Committee for the district. Joe, you're on. Please introduce yourself.
Joe Mikulecky, Daybreak Rotary, co-chairing with Hank because neither of us wanted the responsibility of doing it ourselves. It's a big job.
And then our legal advisor.
Yes, John Hoblit, the guy that drug along kicking and screaming to this. I'm not only the Assistant Governor Association with this, but I'm also serves as steward in regards to the Global Grants Committee.
Good. In this particular session, what I'd like you to do, starting back here with Charlie, I'd like you to please introduce yourself and your Rotary club.
I'm Charlie. I'll stand up.
Sure, please.
I'm Charlie Smith. I'm with CU Sunrise Rotary. That was what you needed. Nothing else?
No, that's good. Liz, please.
I'm Liz Skinner, and I'm with Monticello Rotary.
Kelly Skinner with Monticello Rotary.
Good.
Chuck Knudsen, Bloomington.
Chuck, welcome here.
Kelly Reagan with Clinton Rotary.
Clinton Rotary, good.
Mary Howell, our Kohler Rotary.
Joan Stelzer, Fairbury Rotary.
Michelle Uphoff, Bloomington Rotary.
You.
Carl Berkey, Bile, Champaign Rotary.
Tom Reddington, Clinton Rotary.
Good.
Janet Ellis Nelson, Champaign Rotary.
Ramesh Chaudhary, Bloomington-Normal, Sunset Rotary.
Connie Walsh, Champaign Rotary.
Heather Stowe, Decatur.
Mike Hershey, Champaign West.
Drake Zimmerman, Normal, Illinois.
Amy Bean, Bloomington-Normal Sunrise Rotary.
Welcome here.
Susie Tungate, the award-winning Gibson City Rotary.
Half of the Super Susie.
That's right. Nice.
Sue Everett from the Gibson City.
Good, and congratulations to your club. Just wanted you to call attention to each other, because this is how you can be successful, by understanding and calling on each other for support. So why are we here? We want to pose that question to you. In fact, I'd like you to go ahead and take that.
They're already
You already have it?
Yep. Each of them have a post-it note.
Yep.
Please note, why are you here? Just in a couple of words or something like that. We've got another piece of paper up here if you'd like, or put it on a post-it note. Yes? Or you've got it. Okay.
There's round two.
And you're limited to that little piece of paper there.
Why are we here at this
Why
session?
are you here?
In
This is
general?
something that Joey Dobsky has been
Right.
trying to
This
pump up with us
For this session, I thought you were-
Preferably this session.
this session.
We're interested in the responses that this will generate.
Right.
We're here to sweat a little.
Joe, why are you here?
I'm here to help these people out here understand what it is they're getting themselves into with the global grant.
Good, and John?
I'm also here to actually help out. And I'm actually kind of curious of the people who are here. How many? I've seen some people that I do recognize, obviously from the Global Grants Committee and various that have been involved in projects. But who's here that hasn't done a global grant as of yet? Right? You guys? Jeff does it.
We've tagged on to other people's, but we haven't done one.
A few things. So you guys essentially, and then you guys, is this your first time attending the district at a global grants? Because we've kind of been doing these global grants meetings with the district event. So is this your guys' first time here as well? Okay. Let me just tell you about a little bit about global grants in general then before we get a little bit more detail tacked on about that.
You don't want to know why I'm here?
Oh, Hank. All right. How are you here? Why are you here?
We're here to certainly help qualify certain clubs, or we're here to help you be successful as Rotarians in doing grants if that's what you choose, either within your clubs, your district, or your globe. So we're here to help on all those levels. All right, John?
Oh, okay, well, the global grants, you know, one of the things, you know, Rotary does, we are all familiar with what we do in our communities, in our districts, but there's also an area of Rotary that doesn't get, I think, enough attention, and that is global grants. And that is if you really want to be able to see the real type of life-altering changes you can affect in people's, in communities, it's probably with a global grant. We've had some global grants where we put forth in sort of, you know, a water, you know, system, you know, in Africa, or put forth maternity hospital equipment in a maternity hospital and various other hospitals equipment. We've had where we've got the heart-to-heart, where we essentially have an agreement with Mexico, where we've done many projects, either via the club or with various other aspects, buildings and whatnot. What you can do with a global grant is quite a bit different than what you can do with a typical district grant. You have a little bit more outreach. I'm going to say, you know, it's when I say this a little bit more outreach, it's also a little bit more complicated as well than, say, a normal community project or a district grant. And that is why I am here, and which is why many people are actually here that are involved in the Global Grants Committee are here as well, because we recognize it's a little bit more difficult than typical, and I highly encourage you guys, before we get off into the details about global grants, to start maybe attending the Global Grants Committee, okay? Because to be honest, as much success you will ever have with a global grant is probably the legwork that you do before, you know, you can actually get to that particular stage, before you get to the project, okay? There are a lot of people here that are experienced in regards to global grants. If you are interested, I suggest doubling up with a club that can help you out in association with that. Because from what we can tell you here, I mean, I want to say there's a lot of legwork. You have to do a needs assessment, you know, in regards to global grants. You need to be able to, you know, to find a club that you can trust that's over there, because of as much success you will ever have in a global grants project is with the club you partner up with. We all want to do good, but we got to be able to do good with people and with clubs that we trust. Okay. While they're doing that,
This is really good wall covering because nothing sticks.
Exactly.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
The actual grant committee information, where do you obtain information, like as far as like when you guys meet, or where you meet, or anything like that?
It's on the district calendar for one,
Okay.
electronically.
Okay.
We meet quarterly typically. Latest meeting place has been Tuscola.
Decatur.
Decatur.
Yep.
Decatur's last time before that.
The next one will actually be, I'm trying to think, it's November or December. We're doing it via Zoom.
Okay.
So that more people can participate. Somebody mentioned Zoom in one of the other sessions. That's becoming kind of a latest and greatest district thing.
Cool.
So a lot more people participate, perhaps, at least listen in, if nothing else. And so, yeah, James tried to get it out there so everybody has at least a knowledge of what's going on and when the next one is.
Perfect.
Well, we have a nutrition on the wall here. This group right here is pretty much here to learn about global grants and get qualified for that. Larry's here to observe. And so, okay, so we're vulnerable as volunteers, and we could be fired perhaps deeply within that. The other is to take information back to your club, and that's wonderful. Because, you know, our mental telepathy has not been very good in transferring it from district level down into the clubs. You're here, you're our conduit, you're our contact. So what we did on here was a little bit of a needs assessment. We wanted to know firsthand, what are your needs? And you know what? That's not a bad place to start or to keep in mind for global grants. And it's one of that. So what we hope to do today is to try to fill in some of the blanks of this and help you to understand what are some of those features that you would need to have in place make sure you're qualified for this, and also be in alignment with some of the Rotary guidelines, rules of engagement, so to speak, and make sure that you can be able to get some help to be successful. Are you on board with that?
Yep.
Good. So we're going to proceed with this. On your particular outline there, one of the good places to start within this aptness needs assessment, and thank you very much for participating in that. You could have chosen not to, but you did. Well, let's get on to the number one. When you have these ideas and so forth of where you might pursue a global grant, you've got this idea. Once you get this idea, you really need to put down what's going to be your mission or goal on this, because that is part of your guidepost. Sometimes it's a little difficult to be succinct with it, but the mission of a global project is to certainly help or to serve or to do some things. And where would you find your starting point? Well, it just so happens Rotary International has a guide to global grants. And a place to start on this would be maybe one of your areas of focus. What are those areas of focus that are promoted? Promoting peace, fighting disease, providing clean water, saving mothers and children, supporting education, growing local economies. Now those are big broad brushes. You can't do it all the time. So maybe your mission needs to be tailored down to where these areas and where you can choose to spot something where you can make a difference. Looking at that particular aspect of it within your mission, who is served? In other words, know who you may have in mind. Who will lead? Who will be that little bit of a champion toward this area? And also realize there needs to be a scope to this project, to this particular grant. You can't do it all the time. And there are limits. There are limits of your energy, of resources, of talent, and so forth. So we need to be able to work with that. And the next item on there is, or I have on this, you need to know your audience. Who will you be serving, or who will be reading the grant proposal? I suggest you've got at least 2 audiences. And who might that be? Your club? Possibly your club. I think you've got 1, the audience that you will serve, whether it's Central America, whether it's in some other particular country, but your first audience is Rotary International. Yeah. Because they're the ones who are engaged, and you've got the relationship there. So when you write a grant, who is going to be reading and reviewing the grant? Because if it's not acceptable to that particular audience, it's not going to go anywhere. However, if you can get help along that line, you have better and more smoother running on it. So, just check in mind. Who is served? Who will lead? Scope your project. Know your audience. Make any sense yet? Okay. Joe, why don't you take it there on our next one here?
Needs assessment. Part of the biggest task is who are you going to work with? And it usually starts with a relationship with another club, another country. You may want to drill the water well and save all these people because if I drill the well, things will be perfect. Okay, but where are you going to drill it? Who's going to be responsible for it?
why not ask Carl Berkerball here, who has vetted? How would you respond to needs assessment?
Well, that's what we're about. We're trying to take care of what our needs are, and what we perceive as needs may not be what they perceive as needs. So it's really important to get that from the country where you're going to work.
That's right.
We may have the greatest idea in the world. We think we know exactly what they want, but that may not actually be what they need. So the needs assessment is a requirement. It may not have been a requirement in the past or as strongly emphasized, but it certainly is now. Rotary will not let you proceed without that need assessment, that buy-in from the other club. They may say, Carl may think, well, you need a well, but they may say, we need latrines. So there may be a higher need for something else. They may drill a well, may think it's the greatest thing possible, but they may have no interest in it. So needs assessment is critical. That relationship is critical with that club. And I think that may be one of the things further a little bit down the list here.
And one other aspect on this, that sometimes we as Americans, we don't realize we have a certain culture here. And the other areas that we want to serve have a completely different culture. And to bridge that cultural gap, you need to know who you're serving there and what indeed are their cultural priorities. You know, you've got all kinds, whether it's economic, religious, other kinds of things like that. And we just need to understand it. So having people with boots on the ground, so to speak, in that particular area, get feedback from the local area as best you can. It can be very, very important. So we're really stressing that needs assessment. Yeah, is it required? Yes. But make sure it has some meaning, not just another check on your list.
When you say boots on the ground, for the people that don't know, when you said boots on the ground, it means actually go to the country from which you're looking to do your project and actually assess yourself.
Or another trusted Rotarian who does indeed
Right.
have
Right.
that.
If Carl hadn't gone to his project where there's nearly $300,000 spent, that project would probably still be going on and still lingering.
And the idea is that with the boots on the ground aspect, you might hear that come up every now and then, because the idea is that not only would you go over there once, but you're probably going there several times, and that's out of your own pocket for the most part, as you do that. So there is some financial investment as well with this. But again, with what you put into it is what you get out of it. So.
Can I interject something right there? If you know that you need to do a needs assessment or travel, you can apply for a district grant. And right now, this year it's been $2,000. So if you're thinking ahead and you want to plan, September 1 is the deadline for a district grant. So this might be a direction you want to go for some travel money.
And global grants do fund travel, but when you think of that, however, that also does diminish what you can actually do, because you spend a lot of money on travel, where that dollar spent for the actual project can make a much more significant difference. So it's safer to say, as part of this training, that if you can fund as much of that out of pocket, or through your club, or through a district grant, your project gets more bang for the buck. So.
And certainly on that needs assessment, you'll get into something about the strengths and so forth of that particular community. And of course, there are deficiencies there too. If you look next on your outline, you need to tie that assessment into, all right, if this is going to be done, how will it continue to be done? Is there any sustainability to that? Because that is a key question to be satisfied within this. It's just not the realm of, oh, that's a great idea, dump it out, let's go with it. It needs to have a different, deeper thought than that, sustainability.
Put up a water tank, the water tank's going to sit up there, it's going to degrade, because a lot of them are plastic. How long will it last, and what happens when it cracks, breaks, has to be fixed? Water well, pump goes out, pipe breaks. Do they have the tools and materials to fix it locally, or have the opportunity to do so?
as an example, in the global grant that I wrote in there, it was about medical equipment and so forth, but it was the training and maintenance of that equipment that was part of the contract in getting the piece of equipment for that particular area. Why? Because the local people needed to be trained to be able to get that. It wasn't, oh, we'll have to wait for this expert from the outside to come in and tinker around with this. No, needed the local type thing. That can help continue the service in that particular organization.
One other thing I'll touch on that John brought up is for those people that have not done a global grant that may be looking to do a global grant, how do you find a partner? Tom, you want to comment?
You have some resources in the fact that your governor has just spent time in California with all the other governors throughout the world. They have a list of those governors. They have built personal relationships sometimes. If you identify a place in the world that you think you want to have your club do a grant, they may already have grants down there that they need, that they're looking for partners. Use your governor to contact or get a name or who's doing it. Because I understand what you're saying, but for me to sit here and write a grant for down there, I don't have that information. I don't have the information for the need, necessity, and stuff. I need a person who wants to do a grant. I can up here work with us to do it. Now, we still have to turn in same papers that you said, but that information is going to come from down there. It's not, I can't pull it out of my head.
Where could you find that information?
Interesting angle I heard of for another club was their youth exchange student.
Yes.
You've got a partnership with not only the kid that's over here, but their parents, their ties to the Rotary Club that sponsored them, and that may be one way to look at it. You can go online and find thousands of projects that are looking for partners, but that doesn't give, it'll probably give you contact, but it's not somebody that has really a lot of skin in the game. You get a lot of people shopping for an international partner. What you want is a common connection, a passion. Tom's been going to Brazil for decades. Drake's been working malaria for decades. There's partnerships that are in place, and there's an opportunity to continue grants. This room full of people, among others, are some of those resources that say, hey, I'd like to do this, I don't know where to start. Part of what we want to do is pair you up with a mentor that's done this before, so it's not all strange, and that you're not recreating the wheels. So,
and there's a list with Rotary of any Rotary club in the world. And if you can find one that is close to either that community or that particular area, that is maybe a good place to start. Even a place to start by asking questions, and if not you, that local club, where could we go? At least you have a local perspective, much more so than what you might find in Gibson City. Cool, watch it.
And,
They can do anything now.
yeah, and if you have the wherewithal, I mean, this might not be an option for everybody, but if you have the wherewithal as well, the Rotary International Conference, you know, that would be also an opportunity. You'll have Rotary clubs all around the world there. We'll also be looking to partner up. So that, if you're looking to make a face-to-face interaction, that would be a good option as well.
Any questions on this or any comments on this so far? Yes, Carl.
I would add to the needs assessment, also to evaluate what resources are available. Sometimes we just focus on needs, but even developing countries, they have resources. So what are the resources that are there that you can work with, that you can take advantage of?
Very good point. Very good point with that. When we go to the next path, certainly those of assessment, sustainability, formulate some sort of plan. In other words, some flow chart or some other thing like that, but gosh, where would we find some guidelines to help us?
Guidelines to help us for
formulating a plan.
Formulating a plan.
Did we have
Oh, there is a handout to that effect. The other good thing is, we've done this a time or two, and Heather developed a really cool tool. It's 10 or more tips
Well, that's not what we're passing on now. We're
Oh,
passing on.
you're talking about the worksheet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a proposal worksheet.
Would you like me to talk about the worksheet?
Yes,
All right, I'll talk about the worksheet.
Hank, to give you a tough group to work with.
Yes.
We rehearsed this tremendously beforehand. We did actually put some time into this. Worksheet, something we ask for at the district level to help you, help yourself, but help us as the committee to understand what it is that you're trying to do. Drake's been known to show up at a meeting and whip out one of these things by hand, but he's done this before.
Of course he does.
So, well, this helps you
Just
kind of
describe
think
what that
through.
is. Just describe what we have.
Better give me a copy to look at then. All right, the basics, who you are, what's your focus? And we touched on that a minute ago. What do you want to, what are you solving? Is it a maternal and child health thing? Is it a water well? What is it? And the more boxes you check, the more reporting you have to do.
But focus on an area, a special area of interest. Make sure that those 6 areas with that. If you're out of bounds on that, it's difficult to restart.
Okay, project description, again, it can be pretty basic when you're first starting out, but at the district level, we want to know what you're doing before you actually make the online application. So once that application starts, it's a little difficult to pull it back or retract. So need the buy-in of what you're planning on doing. Drake's got a wild hair or two every now and then, and so we've got to look out for Drake.
Yeah, pick one.
Pick one. Listen to Drake. Pick one that's simple and easily. Community need, okay, that boils down to your assessment we just spoke about. Beneficiaries, list those, duration, project partners, that's going to be a key, because that whole signing off on, the reporting, the authorizations, everything's done electronically now. And electronically, we're finding on a grant right now, getting the authorizations for a final report are being really, really tricky. So if you think of a country that may not have a lot of internet access, or they may not use email like we are accustomed to, it may be very, very difficult to get some of these authorizations. We are all familiar with tablets and readers and can get to things, but some of these other countries we're working with may not be as capable soon.
Okay, so just backing up, back to like
Please.
project duration, how do you even begin to know what something like that's gonna be?
Well, you could take whatever you think it might be and almost double it.
Joe, to answer
Is that
this question,
somewhat safe to say?
you
So
have
your
to
project
establish
needs to have an
contact with
endpoint where
another
you turn it
club
over to that
to
country
get
or-
this information. So your key, really, before you fill this out, is to find someone that's got a project that you want to do. Then you can fill this out.
Yeah, yeah. You need to have the basics kind of thought through. Timeline. Yeah. How do you know? At this point, when you're making an application, it may be a best guess. It should only take, but say you're going to ship stuff from here to there as part of it, to get something in a container or to arrange for shipment without half the product being stolen out of it. Okay, you want to work with Rotarians. You want to figure out, okay, how is it going to get from point A to point B without taxation or theft or whatever the case is. There's all kinds of things that have happened, and a lot of this you want to work through beforehand. So you're talking a lot of homework. You didn't want to do any homework as part of this class, but all of a sudden now all this homework, so oh my gosh, global grants are daunting, it's scary, but they are a lot of work. But the reward is tremendous.
I would say realistically, you're looking at a minimum of 1 year and more realistically up to 3 years from needs assessment to final report. I think it's a 1 to 3 year project.
The tendency is to load up on the description and load up on all that stuff. And you know what? That becomes much too complex. And you find out you've got to back it up. If you look at really 3 type of objectives or goals, you've probably filled that in as much as you really need to. Because what happens as you get more and more into it, you think, oh, we could do this and this other thing, and this other thing. And all of a sudden you have something called scope creep. And then it's difficult to handle. So when you look at your form there, it's a guide.
Okay, jump into timeline. We talked on that. I don't think we need to beat that to death. Opportunity for partnerships. Let's see. you hit on that one actually to a certain extent as well. It's pretty much who you know, who you can trust. Trust is huge. So when you're thinking partnerships, you're thinking you need to be able to account for the dollars that you're given, or that your club is given, or that your members have donated to Rotary International for this or other projects. Rotary International, 4-star rating, having navigator, there's a reason for that. When I give Tom money to spend in Brazil, every dollar of that gets accounted for. I went to Brazil in January, and getting receipts out of those folks was like pulling teeth. Because some of it was handshakes, some of it was word of mouth. As simple as a handwritten piece of paper can sometimes suffice. I've seen all kinds of crazy things provided as receipts and documentation of what was spent. I built a shelving unit, or whatever the case is, by a carpenter that had nothing but a handsaw and some leftover wood, scrap wood from something he tore down. Well, how do you expense that? That has X number of cubits, zirconium, whatever value, but somehow that's going to be accounted for.
I'll share with you, each time that you get to that point, get back to your mission, get back to your other things like that, so that you retain your focus. And the other thing is, we in Rotary have a really wonderful guide in that called the 4-way test that backs us up as far as our values and so forth. And I can recall going into a certain country and saying, well, these are the 3 major things I want to emphasize with this project. Number 1 is honesty and trust. Number 2 was empowerment. And all of a sudden, the interpreter is saying, wait a minute, we don't have a word in our language for empowerment. It happened to be in China. And the thing is, at that regime time, if you felt empowered, you were gone. Just sort of disappeared. And the other was just continuous improvement. Try to learn and improve. Learn and find ways to make it better. Keeping it simple like that helps you keep that focus of what you're going to do, who you're going to serve, and the other things like that.
It may seem incredibly complicated to begin with, but the simpler you can make it, the better. Because it'll get complicated no matter what you do. What you think is easy can get more complicated once it comes to reporting time. And I'm seeing a lot of head nods saying, yes, this is what I've experienced, and we've got a lot of folks in this room that have done these global grants. So, want to jump to budget as the next one, or?
Sure. Why don't we start there with budget?
Okay.
And highlight, you have to have partners in this budget that you really, really, and whether you like it or not, they are going to come to you if it is a viable project with interest. So in this it says Rotary donors from club level on up, district designated funds, DDF. We always use a lot of letters with that, stuff like that. DDF. That is the money that donors have put in that we get back the district. That's sort of our working capital if we do it right, if we do it well. Rotary International Foundation, we heard a good presentation today on the impact that Rotary International and the foundation monies can have, whether it's on disasters or whether it's on special projects. And there are others, NGOs, non-government organizations, not-for-profits, other things like that that you may partner.
May also enhance how you get it done in partnering with non-governmental organizations. So some organizations have a quicker way of getting things done. If you wait for Rotary, in some cases, it can take some time and add to the project. I know a club that bypassed the whole global grant scenario altogether and partnered with another NGO and didn't get the match of what Rotary International provides. So they weren't able to get as much of a bang for buck, but they wanted to accomplish a well project quickly, and they got something knocked out in 2 to 3 months. They already had needs and methods. With Rotary International, it could take you a year, it could take you more. So, but getting the budgets, and this, from what I understand, from what I hear, you may have specific line items with dollar amounts associated with them. Say it's medical supplies, respiratory machine, whatever it is, a list of items, and you assign a dollar amount to it. And those numbers ultimately, grand scheme of things, may change. By the time you budget for a ventilation machine, whatever it is, the cost for that may change. The model number, for instance, may change. They may come up with a better unit for the same cost. So your budget items may morph, may change. Rotary provides some flexibility as long as there's dollars, there's a budget line item to account for it, and they allow some movement, plus a contingency, from what I understand as well. So contingency dollars built into it, and there's some administrative costs built into it as well. If you're wiring money to another country, that costs money. It could cost as much, anywhere from as little as $10 to $50 to $75 to wire money from the United States to whatever country it is. So, budget just something to formulate, best guess at this point in time, but you'll be held responsible once it comes reporting time.
Something to add on, not so much, well, with your global grant. There was a grant in our club that our partnership came up to help in Puerto Rico with a solar panel project for a community center to get enough power that whenever they went off grid, it's enough to operate the refrigerators for medicines. So people who needed insulin or needed the other kinds of things, that was available there. 3 different outside Rotary clubs, one from 2 of them around Michigan, another one from the other place, Normal Rotary, and down in Ponce, Puerto Rico. So they wrote the budget and so forth, $28,000, very close to a global grant, but the other Rotary clubs chipped in $5,000, $5,000, $5,000, and then their Rotary district was able to help with that down in Ponce, Puerto Rico, $28,000 project, finished in several months. So
that
what is it that, excuse me?
That was without a global grant.
That was without a global grant, but it was intercommunications with several different ones on that. Besides, their grid system was wiped out with a hurricane down here. So waiting 1 to 2 years, perhaps with a global grant, maybe more impact, but this was great local impact in a shorter amount of time. There is that potential if you do the spade work to go ahead and look for it, and it can happen. Go ahead, Joe.
Let's see, if you want to jump into the management of risk and also the memo of understanding component.
Yeah, that's a really important part. So John,
Yes.
give it your best shot.
Well, I'll give it my best shot, but we'll just hope the best is good enough, right? The memorandum of understanding is the first thing you guys will need to do. You'll find it, like your worksheet, under the My Rotary website. But do yourself a favor and just Google it. Don't try to find it on the My Rotary website. Just Google Memorandum of Understanding, Rotary District 6490. You'll get it right up front. Same thing for the worksheet, okay? So, having said that, if you're looking to do a global grant, I say this is like the first thing that you possibly need to do. Because in order to do a global grant, you need to have an active memorandum of understanding that's signed by your president, and your president-elect needs to be done every year, okay? And it mainly just kind of gives you some guidelines.
This is a sign-off sheet. This is the first part of it. This is a required component. So for you to be qualified in this, so you need to understand that, yes, this is a component of it that is essential. Who's responsible?
Right, and it just kind of gives you some heads up as to various pitfalls to avoid, okay? And that's why you sign off on these. Things along the lines of keeping an accurate accounting of all the monies and all the transactions, because the Rotary International takes great interest in how the monies are spent. You have to keep track of those things. They require bank accounts to be managed up here in the States as opposed to down in the other countries, and how those management and how those funds are managed. Okay, the signatories for those bank accounts. Okay, so this is the first document you really should be looking at as to whether or not you should be doing a global grant, because you can get this signed and ready before you even find a club. You want to partner up
Everyone
with,
sign in.
okay? And after you move forward with that process, with the memorandum of understanding, guys, I don't want to sound like a broken record. It would really benefit you to start attending the Global Grants Committee meetings. And that's essentially step 2. The worksheet that they gave you, that's great. That's usually when you have a project kind of getting close, having more outlined, and you're looking for district approval at that point, because that's what you submit, okay?
Has it become a Rotary edict that we have to retain the money here?
No.
I never have.
No.
Yeah,
But I haven't had a problem.
but it's also in the,
Well, but
yeah.
when you said that,
I know.
I'm thinking, I
It's
would,
said in every Global Grants Committee, and it says
it's gotta be,
it's in
right,
the
you've got,
MOU.
and that's
Larry,
why
what do you have to
Be
say?
careful.
Yeah,
You sign the MOU. Your club has the financial responsibility to complete this project. Remember, you are working with the Rotary Foundation, one of the highest ranked foundations on the planet. It's a multi-billion-dollar foundation, and because it's a foundation, it has rules mandated by the government on what they do, the fiduciary responsibility that they have to exercise. You have to keep that in mind. So the MOU says you have certain responsibilities, financial responsibilities to complete that work. If you don't, you may have to repay some money.
You might.
You might.
might.
You have to complete the project, issue a final report with a final accounting. If you have more than, I think, $5,000 or $500 to $5,000, you have to return that money to the foundation, because it's their money you're using, okay? Let's keep that in mind. So, yes, you have financial responsibilities.
and the lawyer in me will just say, this is hereby named. What's written there.
but again, you're dealing with people that have as much pride in their Rotary and what they do as we do here.
Yep.
So it's important to have that personal contact, know who you're dealing with and that, because Rotary International really is set up to send the money to them in an account, in a verified account that they have to set up separate. Their president has to be on it, and theirs. So there's, and it's worked that way for a lot of years in a lot of countries. In the countries that you have a feeling about, like what happened to our district in Kenya and that, I don't disagree a bit. But the wholesale statement is what I disagree with a little bit. So we've got that straight.
Okay.
We have a saying. I just want to share this with you because you're going to hear it again. Marry your grant officer. One of the first people you should talk to and call Rotary, what country you're working with.
Right,
Find the
right.
person responsible for that country. Work with them.
You're true.
Work over your problem. Work through the grant application with them. They will help. Get to know that person. Their job is to help you succeed.
Right.
Always remember that. So get to know your grant officer early on.
And sometimes it's just not quite enough. Right, Merle? Sometimes it's just not quite enough. Because cross-culturally, we don't understand about how some of their entities are really looking at Western money. So
But the
it's a little
statement
bit-
John made, if you're wanting to do one, start going to the Global Grant Committee.
Amen.
There's a ton of knowledge there in the people that do it, and I just can't imagine doing a grant in a vacuum.
Right. And the idea, we come in here to do these, with you, but really, in order to sit, yeah.
That's it, John, you're done.
I'm done. No, but really, in order to really learn, to do this, you need to come to these committee meetings, okay? Because you don't really learn everything about global grants in a 45-minute presentation, hour-long presentation. It takes a good amount of meetings, a lot of conversations, and making a lot of connections in regards to doing these. And like I said in the beginning, this is not explored area of Rotary, I find in many districts. I'm sorry, in many clubs, but it is quite rewarding as well. So I think the effort is worth the payoff.
Just to summarize a couple of things, there's documentation and measurement, that is a requirement of Rotary. Perhaps the number of hours invested, the amount invested, the other things like that. Make sure that you have good documentation that leaves a good trail for you to follow locally and certainly here for your clubs. And working with the district global grants committee and other mentors, we encourage mentorship. We encourage mentorship. There's no reason to